It's a highly requested video and your boy yet again has you covered. This is a complete guide to taking a touch in EAFC 24. First of all, what is a touch? It's the first touch that you make with the attacker as you receive the ball in. And what I want to say is there are certain things and aspects and controls that you're going to want to avoid when it comes to taking a touch in EAFC. First up, never take a touch towards the pressure. This is a big issue that I see when it comes to people taking a touch as they receive the ball in for the first time. Taking a touch to the pressure will only cause you to lose the ball because you're taking it directly towards the defender. And a good way to actually take the ball into space and a good technique that you can utilize is essentially doing something as simple as looking at the space. When you look at the space, your hand-eye coordinations will naturally swerve you towards that space. Second up, never take a touch forwards unless there is space. This is a massive mistake that I see. People at all times want to get the ball into the back of the net, but they don't have patience. You need to build it up, and if you're always taking a touch forwards, if you're always passing forwards, if you're always dribbling forwards, then in fact it'll do the opposite. It'll be contrary to your actual goal. You'll go backwards if you attempt to go forwards all the time. So always take a touch backwards unless there is space. Always take it into that space when you see it. Avoid holding sprint. This is another big mistake that I see. You see, the thing is, when you take a touch in EAFC and you hold that R2 or RT button when it comes to receiving the ball in, the touch will be way too large and you will give the ball up. You'll be more susceptible to turning over possession. And holding sprint will cause you to do this. You need to let go of sprint and you need to point the left stick to where you want to take the ball, and then if you're wanting to sprint into the space, if there is actual space to exploit, then you can hold R2. But don't hold R2 when you're taking the ball in. Keeping your back to the opponent. Now it goes in line with what I said before about taking the ball to the space. If you don't take the ball to the space when you receive the ball in, you will lose the ball. It's similar to dribbling. If you don't dribble to the space, you will lose the ball. And this aspect of keeping your back to the opponent is also similar to dribbling. You must always take a touch to the space that will set you up to always keep your back to the opponent. Because if you're taking it in a direction that, let's say, makes you face sideways or parallel to the defender, then you will be more susceptible to losing the ball. So it's always got to be in a direction which keeps your back to the opponent, and this will allow you to take the ball in and keep possession. Taking a touch away from the defender goes in line with taking a touch to the space, and it goes in line with keeping your back to the opponent. Always take it to the opposite direction of where the defender is so that you can keep the ball. How to draw defenders out with a touch in EAFC. You see, it's actually quite similar to what I mentioned in the complete attacking tutorial, in that when you're taking a touch and you're taking the ball in with your attacker, you should really look to try and take it back into the space and back away from the defender so that you can actually encourage the defender to follow you and leave a gap or a hole for you to exploit. And that's why taking a touch backwards and into the space and keeping your back to the opponent and then dribbling backwards will actually benefit you, because it will also open up gaps and spaces for your other attackers to run into and for you to exploit. So take a touch backwards, keep your back to the opponent, and draw defenders out with this technique, and you will score goals because you will open up gaps in space in your opponent's defense. Taking a touch in your striker's feet. You see, a big mistake that I see when it comes to taking a touch, let's say in the box, is when they hit the striker, they want to take a touch and then shoot straight away, but their touch isn't calculated. Sometimes you need to take a touch that will in fact set you up for a dribble or a skill move or something or other to then create the angle for the shot, and I will get into that in a brief time, but when it comes to hitting the striker's feet, always take the ball in and look for where the holes are. And that's specifically important for when you're inside the box. Because when you're in the box, you always need to take it to space because there are only limited areas of space in the box. Which means you need to take it into the hole, into the space, and then calculate whether the actual angle for the shot is open or you need to do a dribble or a skill. Taking the touch to stand still, it's actually quite effective. And the reason why I say this is because when you pass around and your opponent's being quite passive in the defense, he will be covering passing lanes, he will be switching between his defenders and essentially being very passive in the defense, attempting to keep the shape of the defense. If you so as to pass into a midfielder, let's say, and just let go of the left stick as you take it in to stand still, this will then encourage your opponent to actually defend against you and come out at you. What this does is then opening up gaps and spaces for you to exploit. So this segment is really about beating opponents who are too passive in the defense and AI defend too much. You can actually use a touch to do this and beat the opponent by dragging him out and creating space. The fake shot stop as a touch. Again, very effective when receiving the ball in first time. If you just perform a fake shot, which is shot or pass, press subsequently afterwards, and you let go of the left stick, the player will fake shot stop on the spot, which then allows you to reassess where you want to go from there. You can also hit a skill move straight after if that is something that might be necessary in that certain situation. But the point is, it's a great way to stop the ball instantaneously as you receive that ball in, and it's very effective as a first touch. Taking a touch with skill moves. You're probably thinking, didn't you just teach us a couple of skill moves as a touch? Well, yes, I did, but I'm talking about skill moves that don't stop on the spot per se. They are more skill moves that you do first time, and as we know in FIFA 22, first time skill moves were brought to the game and revolutionized the skilling in FIFA, aka EAFC. So skill moves that you might want to use as a first touch are, let's say, the ball roll. It's very effective to do first time because you may want to take it away from the defender first time, which is approaching you. And to perform a ball roll, you need to point the right analog stick to the side of where the player is facing. And usually you should go to the side that is going to take the ball away from the pressure. Okay, and doing that ball roll first time as a touch will help you do that. We have the fade shot, and a first time fade shot as a touch is actually very effective. You may be receiving the ball in with a striker and you need to do a fade shot to the side to get it away from the defender's block and get that shooting angle. It's very effective. Just press shoot or cross with pass afterwards and he'll perform a fake shot first time as you receive it in. We then have the boosted touch. Now this is actually very effective. So if you just flick the right analog stick as you're holding R2 or RT on Xbox and you flick it into a direction first time as you receive the ball in where the space is, it will allow you to burst into that space instantaneously and the player will get a speed boost from it. It's actually very effective, and if you're on the wing receiving the ball in with that winger, you can hit this speed boost or knock-on boost with the right analog stick and take the ball first time into space and burst into it with a speed boost is more effective. Taking a touch when you're in behind. Now this goes in line with a mistake that I always see in my coaching academy. When people are in behind, they're so eager to get on goal and score, but a lot of the time if they take a touch forwards when holding R2, let's say, the defender is going to catch up to them because it does take time for you to control the ball down as a first touch and continue running on, and momentum can be against you. What you need to focus on is in fact taking the ball first time backwards, because what this will do is cause the defender running back to go way past you and overcommit from the momentum of his run, and then you can retain possession and potentially then try and beat him again with a skill move or take the ball into the space where you can then lay it off to another attacker in a better area. You shouldn't always try and go forwards. It's like what I was saying before about always attempting to take the ball forwards. You should focus on trying to keep possession as the priority and then look to, of course, attack on goal. We then have taking the touch inside the bots. Now this is where the more advanced techniques will start to come out with this tutorial. But what I want to say is when you take a touch into the bots, there sometimes can be multiple areas in that bots where essentially you can take it because there are multiple areas or pockets of space. But you always want to try and take a touch in the bots where it's going to set you up better for a pass, a shot, or a dribble, even a skill move. You should always try and look for all the holes and spaces and then make the best decision on what you have in front of you. Take the ball into the space as a priority, keep your back to the opponent, and you will keep the ball in the bots. Because so often I see people get the ball into the striker and they attempt to turn straight into the defender. It's not going to work for you. Take it back into the space and then look at what you're going to do after that. So important. This then brings me into taking a touch to determine the flow of the play. And this is important because you may be taking a touch to the space. You may be keeping your back to the opponent as you take that touch. But is it actually the more optimal direction of the touch that you could take to get the next pass that you want? There might be multiple areas of space that you can hit, but is it going to set you up for the next pass? And this is where being less tunnel visioned and of course looking where you want to go next comes into play. You need to start and take a touch into the space, but into the direction and space that's going to determine the flow of your play to where you want to go next. You should already know where you want to pass next. That's what advanced players are doing. Pro players, in fact, they're always thinking 2 or 3 passes ahead. So always take a touch into the space, keep your back to the opponent, hit the holes, but make sure it's in the direction that's going to set yourself up where the body shape of the attacker is going to hit the next attacker with the pass. This is taking a touch to determine the flow of the play, and it's very important. Taking a touch in the air. Quite often we're going to receive the ball when we are receiving an air ball. Maybe you've crossed it, maybe you have in fact switched it. Whatever it is, the number one technique you want to bear in mind is that you always want to let go of the left stick. What do I mean by that? Well, you may have crossed it in and there may be a situation where you're a player needs to control it down. Briefly let go of the left stick as you take the touch. This will enable you to control it better, because if you're aggressively pointing the left stick towards a certain direction to take the touch, this will cause you to fumble it, or the player will take a larger touch than normal than if you actually just let go of the left stick. So when you're receiving the ball in first time in the air, let go of the left stick and then go from there. This will allow you to control the ball better, and then you won't have any issues getting the shot off or continuing with your build up and attack. And of course, it goes the same. You want to let go of the sprint button when taking the ball in first time in the air. The touch will be way too large and you'll lose the ball. The dink touch, brought to us in FIFA 21. My God, was it effective in those days. If you just press down on the right analog stick and point it to a certain direction that you want to flick the ball first time as you receive it in, the player will dink it into that direction, which is so good for bypassing an approaching defender, because you can dink it over his tackle, his block, and then burst into the space. And that's what I find with this, is that if you do it, it will burst you into that space. Player will be instantly into 100% capacity for his sprint, and you'll be able to sprint into the space after performing this. Press down the right stick and point to the direction that you want to take the ball. The first time feint. Now, if you are holding R1 when you receive the ball in, they will let the ball go and then they will run onto it as it goes through. It can be effective if you're on the wing, you're passing, let's say, from the wing back to the winger, and there's an approaching wing back from your opponent's defense. You can hold R1, they will feint it, and then burst off into the space to where the ball direction goes. They usually let go of the ball, which then allows you guys to, of course, run into the gap in space that's behind you. Just hold R1 as you receive it, and this will do the feint touch. The disguise turn. Yet another skill move turn that you guys can perform. Is it that effective? Not so much, but it does feint the defender sometimes. It can be good for pretending you're going one way and then you go the opposite way. Again, you're just holding R1, but you're pointing towards where the ball came from. So you're not actually holding the left stick when you do the first time feint turn, which I taught you before, but with the disguise turn touch, you of course point towards where the ball's coming from with the left stick, and he'll do the disguise turn. Shielding as a touch, a good way to protect the ball first time when you receive the ball in. And if there is an approaching defender, if you just tap the L2 button or at least hold it, he will shield the ball when attempting to block that player off. So it can be effective, but I wouldn't abuse it, and of course I wouldn't spam it. The bursted touch. Now this doesn't incorporate the speed boost touch like I taught you before. I'm just in general talking about holding R2. When you receive the ball in, although I did say you shouldn't hold R2, if there is a little pocket of space which you do want to burst into, it can be useful just to hold it briefly, burst into that space by putting the left stick towards it as you receive the ball in first time, but then letting go of R2. You shouldn't spam it. Let go of it after you've done that, and then you'll control the ball in first time and burst into the space. Then we have taking a touch to determine the flow of the play, but I'm referring to a more advanced technique of, let's say, performing skill moves after the touch. When you take the ball in, take it to the space, keep your back to the opponent, but take it into the optimal direction that's going to be able to allow you to perform the skill move that you want to perform to get around or past the defender. Usually this is an advanced technique, but it's very effective when you're in the bots. There may be a certain direction that you need to take the ball first time to actually set yourself up for the correct skill move in that situation, like let's say a reverse Lassico. You may need to take it in a direction that's, let's say, to the right of the space, where then you can do a reverse Lassico to then get the shot off, and it gives you the optimal angle to perform that skill move. It's advanced, but it can make a difference. So bear in mind, learn your skill moves, number one. Number two, always take the ball first time into a direction that's going to allow you to optimally perform that skill move in that situation. Last but not least, we do have taking a touch when you guys are under pressure. Now, when you are under pressure, I do recommend first time passing, quick tick-a-tacker first time passing, because this will allow you to bypass press a lot of the time. But when it comes to taking the touch when you are under pressure, of course take it into space, but always bear in mind that when you are building up, if you do need to take a touch, only take the touch and then try and let the ball go again, because if you take a touch and then spend too long on the ball, you will lose out. So it can be handy to always take it to the space, away from the pressure, and you'll hopefully bypass the press doing this technique. So there you have it, a complete guide to taking a touch in the AFC. Smash the like button and subscribe. I can't believe this information's free. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you doing? It's free, number one, and I'm pumping out these useful tutorials for you guys. Let's hit 100k subs this year. It's our year, baby. Okay, but I'm coaching one-on-one as well. If you want to be a part of exclusive content as well as monthly coaching classes, one-on-one coaching with me, you can also ask me anything. Check it out, the link is down below in the patreon.com website. But I'm out. Sayonara, au revoir, adios, salam, ciao. Goodbye. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then I'd really appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button. And lastly, if you do want any pre-gaming fuel or supplement, then head over to atpscience.com, which is the first link in the description, and use the code DylanEtsATP at checkout to get yourself a discount. Not only is it the cheapest way to get supplements, but it helps me out a ton, guys, so thank you.